Space Law might seem like some new spin on a syndicated TV show. Law and Order, Space Law Division. And who knows, might be something like that down the road. Especially since we now officially created a new branch of the government called the Space Force. Let's take a quick dive into what space law is and how space law came to be. As the space race got underway in the late 1950s, the UN realized there was a major potential for militaries around the world to have an arms race in space. Meaning, they feared exactly the right thing. Imagine, if you will, two nations in a Cold War racing to be the supremacy force in space. One trying to develop a laser-based technology that would utilize sensors to spot a launched intercontinental ballistic missile and defensively attack that ICBM as it breached 90 plus kilometers. The other trying to outdo the first in creating a satellite that houses ICBMs aimed at their enemies. This is not fictional. These are actual plans superpower countries have tried to enact. Thankfully, the UN had the foresight and capability to establish the Conference of Disarmament just as we started moving out of the Apollo program and into the age of the space shuttle. While the CD and the UN did work toward reducing all weapons across the world, it also had a focus on limiting sovereign spacefaring nations' abilities to arm themselves in space. In 1958, after Russia launched Sputnik and made spacefaring a reality, the UN created a committee called the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. This committee has grown from over 24 countries when it started to nearly 70 as of the creation of this presentation. The UN Office of Outer Space Affairs does the following, among many other things. It promotes peaceful use of outer space for all mankind. It is in contact with governments and non-government organizations, NGOs, about the proper use of outer space. It is key in exchange of scientific information pertaining to outer space. It promotes international cooperation on all fronts as it pertains to space, space travel, and the collection of scientific information in and about space. It also maintains the registry of objects that are launched into space. If the model UN is your thing, then the Office for Outer Space Affairs might be something you're really into. This is their page on information for students. It's not bad. It has some decent stuff in it. I'd recommend digging around, taking a look at what their website is like. See if it's something you're really into. So space law. You may be asking yourself, what's the point? It's all about holding countries, people, and organizations accountable for their actions. It's all about the betterment of humankind. Okay, but what exactly is space law? Simple. It's a series of international treaties and a set of principles that many spacefaring and non-spacefaring nations have agreed to uphold. Keep in mind, space law applies to the military applications in space as well as non-military applications. Part of what space law does is that it keeps a nation or other entities of Earth from laying claim to parts of space or celestial bodies. Just because we got to the moon first and we put a flag there, and we also left a lot of junk behind, it doesn't mean the moon belongs to the U.S. It also identifies that objects put in space are the property of the original owners and their responsibility as well. This is partially why countries with aging satellites in orbit will destroy them. If you'll remember from the space junk discussion, that can be horrific for neighboring satellites in orbit. It can also be a posturing of one nation for the eyes of another. In 2007, China was on blast for developing and launching their first satellite-killing missile, shooting down its own weather satellite. Keep in mind, we've done the same, and many nations have as well. We have even developed a high-energy weapon that can do it from land if we need it to. It's also important to point out that states are held accountable for any object that causes harm or damage while it's in orbit, and it belongs to them. Keep in mind, this also means if it leaves their orbit, disassembled or not. And if you're not sure what a state is in this, it's a legal term used to represent various government bodies, more commonly that we know them as countries. So in conclusion, yes, there is space law. Yes, there are weapons that make their way into space, and we even have satellites designed to specifically take out, literally run into, or capture other satellites. As a world society, as a global society, we are becoming all too aware of the importance that we need to put into regulating the space we know as outer space. We do try to use the UN as a means to make this happen, as we all try to agree that space law should be in place to protect all of mankind.